This time, I'd like to discuss the case involving Mori Nagatakuo and Morisawa, where a fraudulent scheme swindled over 800 million yen, and a Chinese man suspected of being the mastermind was arrested. This case has been widely reported, so many of you may already be familiar with it. The scam involved a group impersonating Mori Nagatakuo to defraud a 70-year-old woman living in Ibaraki Prefecture. Through 49 separate transactions, including bank transfers and hand-delivered cash, they managed to swindle over 800 million yen. Initially, when I read about this case, I thought the total damage of 800 million yen had been amassed from multiple victims. However, it turned out that a single person was swindled for the entire amount. This incident is reportedly the largest financial damage caused by social media scams to date. In this fraud scheme, there were individuals responsible for receiving the money, likely the lowest-level participants in the organization. However, the person giving instructions to these individuals, suspected of being the mastermind, was a 34-year-old Chinese man. Unfortunately, there is little additional information about this case. In such criminal organizations, the so-called mastermind is often not the true ringleader. Above this level, there is usually someone managing the entire operation. It remains unclear whether this person is operating within Japan or abroad. Furthermore, there is no information about whether the swindled 800 million yen remains in Japan or has already been sent overseas. If it has been transferred abroad, one wonders what methods were used, as it would be difficult to execute such transfers alone. For example, Chinese underground banks are known to facilitate quick transfers for amounts in the thousands. However, it is unclear if these underground banks could handle sums as large as hundreds of millions. There are numerous Chinese people living in Japan and many running businesses. If companies or organizations involved in illegal remittances exist among them, then large-scale transfers may be feasible. If such entities are involved, they are likely connected to other crimes as well. It is imperative to dismantle these networks thoroughly. Otherwise, similar crimes will continue, with stolen funds being funneled overseas. This puts the Japanese police's determination to the test. It feels like foreign organizations have started operating in Japan sooner than I had anticipated. In the past, there were already cases in China where the higher-ups of criminal groups relocated abroad to evade the authorities, who aggressively pursued domestic fraud. Unlike Japan, China does not prioritize human rights in criminal investigations and can easily collect personal information and conduct thorough crackdowns. As such, these organizations move their operations abroad. At one time, the Philippines served as a major base, but as the Philippines garnered more attention, its authorities also began cracking down on Chinese criminal organizations. However, according to local sources, the Philippines' law enforcement system is not entirely reliable. While the government and police claim to address these issues, corruption often undermines their efforts. As a result, Chinese organizations have shifted their bases to countries like Myanmar and Cambodia. There have even been reports of them luring individuals from Taiwan under false pretenses to carry out fraudulent operations such as scam calls and emails. 2 years ago, I mentioned on this channel that these schemes might eventually infiltrate Japan. At the time, I believed the language barrier would be a significant hurdle. A Japanese person can easily spy unnatural Japanese in fraudulent messages unless the perpetrators are exceptionally fluent. While such poorly written emails still occasionally appear, the situation has evolved. Now, with many Chinese individuals residing long-term in Japan, they can leverage their local knowledge and even employ Japanese people as accomplices. This has enabled foreign criminal organizations to operate fraudulent schemes in Japan. In contrast to China, where authorities face fewer restrictions in pursuing criminals, Japan's approach to criminal rights and procedures is different, making it challenging to address these issues comprehensively. Without nationwide efforts, it will be difficult to eradicate such crimes. Moving on to the current state of fraud in China, a September article lists 5 typical online scams still rampant today. These include online financial fraud, fake side job scams, investment fraud, e-commerce platform fraud, and scams targeting individuals with promises of wealth. For example, the first type, online financial fraud, targets those desperate for loans by requiring an upfront guarantee fee, often around 5%. Scammers also collect personal information during this process. Borrowers, enticed by the promise of loans, transfer the guarantee fee only to realize later that they have been duped. This type of scam thrives during economic downturns when more people find themselves in financial distress. Similarly, scams targeting young individuals or small business owners with promises of lucrative side jobs, such as writing fake reviews, have been on the rise. These scams often begin with small payouts to build trust before leading victims into financial traps. As criminal groups grow more sophisticated, creating fake websites resembling legitimate platforms, it has become increasingly challenging to distinguish fraudulent operations. Victims are misled into believing they are interacting with authentic companies, only to lose money and sensitive personal information.